Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Diversity at the Institutes. Today, I have three phenomenal women who are joining me for Women's History Month, and we are super excited to have Courtney, Vivian, and Claire here with us to discuss their experiences as women in the industry. Welcome, all of you, and I'm just super excited about this discussion today. So let's go ahead and get started. The first question would be, just tell us about yourself and your journey into the industry. Courtney, can we start with you?
Absolutely. So my name is Courtney Davis Curtis. I'm the AVP for Risk Management and Resilience Planning at the University of Chicago. But my insurance experience really started some 16 years ago, where I was an intern at Gallagher, really spending my time in different parts of the organization and niches, and happened to find a liking to the higher education practice, where I started full-time after college. I was there for some 5 years before joining Marsh & McLennan Companies in their education practice, doing a more placement role versus the production role that I was in previously. After about 2.5 years there, it kind of led to my opportunity at the University of Chicago, where I started off as the director. Really throughout my career, I've been involved in URMIA, which is the University Risk Management and Insurance Association. I just finished my year as president and now currently serve as the immediate past president. So really taking the opportunity to expand from these relationships and networks that I've had my entire career. I also serve on the board of directors for United Educators, and I have a few insurance designations that I've gathered around the way. But in addition to my professional career, I'm a mom too, a happy mom of one daughter. So I always like to share that as well.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Vivian, can you tell us about yourself and your journey into the industry?
Absolutely. Hi, my name is Vivian Jin. I'm from California, Los Angeles area. I come from an immigrant family from South Korea, where I was first introduced to America at the age of 16 with no prior opportunity to learn English. So my journey into this country and also into the insurance industry was very old school. I learned through my English as my second language classes, and it was a challenge, but I'm here today speaking in English, which is wonderful and amazing. Most of Gen X's back in the days, we looked at our job postings through just regular local newspaper. And that's where I found my journey into the insurance industry. And that was 20 years ago. And I started in personal lines for a very smaller agency. And now I am working at Hub International, which is a national brokerage. I work as a client service director, specializing in Asian American specialty practice. I am a mother of two as well. I have two wonderful boys. My older son is serving in the Air Force right now, so I'm very proud of him. So that's my journey into this industry. Thank you.
Awesome. And last but not least, Dr. Claire, tell us about your journey into the industry.
So this is awkward. I was born into this space. You guys didn't want this. It's weird. No, I'm just kidding. I'm so happy to be here with all three of you ladies today. Thank you for the opportunity. So kind of kidding and not kidding. I did come into the workers' compensation industry because of a family friend that I had grown up with. And so that is kind of ironic and also very conducive to how the insurance industry is super relational. My backstory is I was a foster kid to adopt. And so I look at the workers' compensation space very similarly to just the foster care system as a whole, where they're designed with really good intent. They have structure, they're very complicated and hard for people to understand. So I have breezed through. I am the true millennial. I've been at a few companies. I started at Sedgwick, was a claims manager over at Farm Bureau, dabbled into some psychosocial predictive analytic tools when I was over at RTW, and then got the pleasure to create the workers recovery unit at Continental Western, a W.R. Berkley corporation. Then went over to North American Risk Services, where we created the workers empowerment team. And most recently, I am now doing my own consulting firm, trying to make good things happen for employers and small businesses that don't necessarily have the capabilities to have a chief risk officer. It's been really fun just getting to make good things happen for people, which is ultimately what I like to do in my personal life as well. I am a CASA advocate supporting children that have been removed from families through DHS. And I am also very blessed to be a mom, and I have one daughter as well. I stopped when I had myself. So we'll just leave it at that. And she's amazing.
Know that too well.
Yeah, I felt that, Courtney. I was like, oh, get that. See you.
This is awesome. And I love the fact that you all come from very diverse backgrounds. I mean, phenomenal backgrounds at that, but very diverse backgrounds. So with your background and being within the industry, what changes have you seen in the industry since you started, for women? What changes have you seen? And we'll start with Vivian.
I was thinking about this question, and what changes have I seen versus what changes do I want to see, but we haven't seen yet? I think that's more, it resonates with me better, because there's so many things that happens in this industry on a daily basis where changes are so rapid, but the generational change in this industry is very lacking. Again, Gen X. Claire says she's a millennial. We don't see a lot of Gen Zs or, younger folks coming into the industry. And this is such an amazing field to really invest your career in. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, we don't see that with younger people. That spark isn't there for them. So how do we bridge that gap with the generational changes, with the changes that are coming into the industry as a whole, right? That's where I like to see the changes coming in. The changes that I've seen in the past, definitely technology. Back in the days when I started, we were writing information down on a napkin, right? And typing it in on a carbon paper and submitting through fax. Now everything is super rapid. Everything is online. There's no paper submission. That technology change it's a huge element in how we do business on a daily basis. So if we are able to bridge those two gaps, right, with the technology that's evolving, if we're able to bring in the younger generation in the workforce, I think it'll be a perfect marriage, which I'm hoping to see in the near future.
It's really good, really good. Anybody else want to say or answer anything?
So I'm also a professor at Drake University, and was talking to one of my students over the weekend who was telling me that his mom was just appointed to be CEO of an insurance company in the interim while she doesn't want to do it for the rest of her life. She's just coming in to do this for about 6 months while they find someone else. And so we were talking about that. I was like, oh, she's a unicorn. Like, I want to meet her. I want to be able to just go to lunch with her. And if she's going to be I'm in Des Moines, Iowa, we've got 85 insurance companies here. So, there's a few, but not a lot of women. And so when he said that, and he's like, well, actually, my mom was originally a CEO back in the early 2000s, where in this family of companies, she was one of 2 women, period, out of 50 plus organizations. And she was the only one that was married. So her husband was known as the first man. I was and the thing is, I'm sitting here listening to the story, and I'm thinking about how amazing his mom has to be. I'm like, I just cannot wait to meet this woman. He set up a lunch for us and whatnot. And then I think back in the early 2000s weren't that long ago. And yet that's my reaction is, oh my gosh, there is one. I got to meet her. She's part of this. I want to talk to her. I want to know what her experience was like. That I really is great. I'm so happy that we're getting there. It's also 2023. This shouldn't be a unicorn type phenomenon. It should be the normal. And so that kind of, I'm with you, Vivian, where what would I like to see versus what's happening? And I think a lot of that does go to the technology and the generational changes that we see up ahead.
And I would add to that, when I think back to when I first started, I was having similar thoughts in my head. There's not as many women in this industry, or at least in leadership roles, as I would have anticipated. And the conversations were starting to happen about diversity more broadly, but not specifically about women. And then even as we start to have these conversations about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, or ESG, oftentimes the people who were responsible for leading, it was one individual versus it being across an organization. And sometimes that individual was the person who was most underrepresented, being in charge of leading that change. And so I've seen that as part of this progress, but there's still so much work to do.
When you say that, Courtney, that actually makes me think of, we used to have, like, I was part of a bigger organization in my younger years, and we had like a secret society where all of the mid-level women leaders would get together and just talk about how to navigate the space, because you're right. It's like the one person that's tasked to bring in all of these broad platforms. And then depending on how you're received, can either make it very favorable or it can make it really challenging. And so we would come together cohesively and meet secretively I hate saying it that way, but it was kind of like a undercover, like prohibition type meeting. Hey, how do you stay viable when you're trying to communicate a message that might not be received as well as, everybody wants to buy in. And I love the younger generation saying that you better have an ESG. Like, we want to see your statement. We want to see that it's applicable. And congratulations, you have a diversity statement. What does it actually look like within your organization? And just how do you get those things to be received as well as embraced, so it doesn't have to just be buzzwords that are trying to target market and used for advertising.
That's 100% true. Everything that everyone has said. Vivian, you mentioned, the lack of Gen Z, and Dr. Claire, what you just said, that's Gen Z. They're looking for, actionable steps instead of just a statement. Which of course brings us to our next point of Dr. Claire, what you mentioned, as well as you, Courtney, concerning, the lack of representation within the industry, specifically with women, because as of right now, women outnumber men within the insurance agencies, but women are still underrepresented in leadership positions. And what do you think the industry can do or change to make up for this lack of representation? Of course, the first thing you say is hire more women, of course, but what other steps can be taken so that we can have these women in leadership? And it's not, as you say, Dr. Claire, a unicorn. You're shocked. You're like, oh my gosh, she's a CEO. This should be the norm. So what steps can the industry begin to take so that we don't have these unicorns?
Well, I think there has to be a commitment to being intentional in what we're striving to do that's tapped into some level of accountability. So we can't just say we're going to do something. Someone has to be accountable for actually doing that. Finding avenues to create opportunities and pathways to leadership would be essential as part of that. So it's coupled with mentorship, perhaps leadership development programs. We're very clearly, if you do X, Y, Z, then this will make you, part of the consideration for a role. Or even, if you check these boxes, then we will be able to advance you into X position. I just think making it clear, because sometimes that pathway to leadership, it's not clear what that looks like.
Right.
We've got job architecture structures in our organization, but someone still doesn't know, how do I get to the next level? Right? What should I be doing now to get to where I want to get to? It shouldn't be this hidden agenda. It should be very clear that we're working towards that. That's why we have so much movement amongst the industry, because it's not clear. And sometimes the best way for us to get to the next level is to leave our organization. We could save ourselves a lot of time and effort. We really honed on in and created a pathway, provided education, and we're really intentional and accountable to making those goals possible.
Yeah, I like that, Courtney. I think that's really insightful, as well as I want to kind of piggyback off of the mentoring. So I have been really great. I have had some amazing mentors. They have all been men, which is surprising to me and also not, because to Courtney's point, all right, and being the millennial, I can say that I do that like 3 to 5 year job thing exactly because the pathway is not clearly there. Or if it is, there's relationships that are predating, and we all know how this situation works out. But I have gone to organizations and asked, all right, so, especially when it's senior women in that executive suite, I'm like, all right, are you guys mentoring? And I haven't always gotten a great feel. I've had them, I don't want to make a hasty generalization, but I have seen some of the older women that didn't do that. Like, well, we worked really hard to get here. okay, so turn around and help us. Like, what were the pitfalls that you experienced that I can learn from? Like, I want to learn from you. Like, I'm hungry to learn from your experiences. And I don't necessarily think women have always approached it in the same way that maybe we are now. Like, I love
Mhm.
working people with, and I think that Courtney and Vivian can say the same thing. Like, it is about bringing people with you. And when you get into these new roles, who can you bring along with, or who can you help
Right.
guide and whatnot? And I think that that has been a shift, that when we talk about like, what have we seen over the past 20 years, I had to be really intentional with trying to find women that wanted to help. And that wasn't always well received in my experience. So Vivian, what about you?
You know, I think as women, we have extra challenges than men do. And I know it's a very broad statement. However, we as women, we have children that by vast majority, it's the women that take care of children. And also when it comes to elderly parents, vast majority of women are the ones that are taking care of our elderly parents. So when we put in those formulas into women really being able to succeed and be in that or get to that leadership position, we're always constantly battling. Do I choose this over this,
Mhm.
right? That's a daily challenge that we deal with every single day. So while it's wonderful to implement mentorship and leadership, I don't know, programs or whatnot, I think we also need to recognize the gap and the challenges that women face every day and provide some sort of a support system within the organization or even from outside of the organization. If we're able to tap into some resources where we're able to get some sort of support and sponsorship to help navigate through our daily life challenges while we're working through our career development, I think that'll be a fantastic thing to do.
Really good. That is really good. And I will just do a sidebar. When I first reached out to Vivian to do this webinar, her response to me was yes, but she also said, if you need me to connect you to women within the industry, I can do that. And I was taken aback. I was like, she doesn't know me, I don't know her, but for her to even offer that, to your point, Dr. Claire, about, you don't have too many who will do that. I was shocked, I was impressed, and I said to myself, her and I are friends. So thank you for that.
Anytime.
One other thing that I would add to this is also, we know we historically, we want to be overqualified for the job. Like we want to meet
Yes.
all 10 out of 10. And man, do I want to tell everyone, if you even have an interest in it, go for it. Because you bring, to Vivian's point, with all of the extras that add up in our life, we are way more qualified than the 10 bullet points that are listed for, the nice to have or would like to have. Yeah. So when you start looking at it from that perspective, my daughter brought me her resume the other day, and I loved this because she plays on a volleyball team. And so she talked about team dynamics that make her a great team member for her to like go apply at Starbucks or whatnot. And I was like,
wow.
I love that. I would never have thought about that. And she's like, I got to leverage what I have. And so when we think about that and going out for these, positions that might be a stretch, or we're looking at that next career move, I say start going for it and start capitalizing on some of these things to Vivian's point of, we do all of these extra things and they can easily translate into, quantifiable measures that can make us very successful for the positions that we are trying to seek after in leadership roles.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So our next topic is, you are all leaders within the industry. How has leading and advancing the insurance field as a female empowered you? How has that empowered you as, just being a leader in the industry in general? Courtney?
Yeah, sure. I would say that I truly love what I do. And so to me, it doesn't feel like work. I'm ever committed to advancing, the discipline of risk management and insurance, which is part of the statements that we have for IRMIA, and certainly diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And I'm empowered by the power of a network, right? I love seeing things on LinkedIn and interacting with others in LinkedIn and hearing their stories and responding to their stories. And when I have a post and people respond back, it's like seeing the fruits of your work or seeing others who understand and appreciate what you do echo and give you feedback. This is where I've made additional connections to people who wouldn't otherwise come across me because it's not higher ed or risk management or whatever the case may be. And interesting to the prior conversation that we've had, people will reach out to me. And what makes me feel most empowered is when I feel seen, when it will be someone who finds some representation in me and says, we see you, thank you for doing what you're doing. And then when they ask, would you have a moment to talk to me? And I do. And so even if you can't find someone to mentor you, for a formalized process, those micro opportunities of engagement can be equally as powerful to just share your story or hear someone else's and give them advice right back. So I feel empowered from people seeing me and feel like I'm doing the right things, but then also being able to give back too.
I'm going to piggyback off of that. So I like to use in workers' compensation, I like to say that people like injured workers need to be seen, heard, acknowledged, and valued. So Courtney just said seen, so I'm going to roll with heard. When I came out with the Workers Recovery Unit philosophy, it was met with a lot of resistance, and it's kind of been a joke where I've now been termed like the glitter bomb of workers' compensation, because I do believe that we can make a difference, and every step along our way is a way that we can help improve the lives of others. We're given a gift from this kind of a position where every single decision we make and every communication that we have can be a single-handed game-changing element to someone's life. Like, we're dealing with people that are very vulnerable, they're in an icky situation. We get to be that glimmer, that little flare of hope. And so when I hear people say, hey, because of your philosophy or a talk you've had or an article you've written, we have now implemented this into our claims program, or I speak differently to injured workers now, or hey, we've started to change the narrative. We started to use different verbiage because words matter. You continue to talk to yourself in a certain way, and that matters. And so I want to just piggyback off of Courtney's with that and say, while you get to be seen, I like to be heard. All right, Vivian, now it's you.
So seen and heard, and let me piggyback off of Claire now by saying, I think you said acknowledged, right?
Yeah.
So I currently serve as the Vice President for Korean American Insurance and Professionals Association here in Los Angeles. And it's a very small network of professionals in the industry that serves in the Korean American community here. And because it's a minority organization, it's very hard to get the visibility and the acknowledgement in the entire Los Angeles or California area. So when I came on board, my focus was to what can I do to get the visibility of our association out to the community so that we can provide and bring a lot of resources that's helpful for the business owners and individuals that probably they will never have the opportunity to get while they're working with just the local small agencies. So I think that work that I'm doing is really something that empowers me to bring that recognition and bringing that acknowledgement to the community. And it's been such an amazing journey for me. And on top of that, before I joined the association, I've been serving as the board of the agency council member for Hartford Small Commercial. So bringing the voice from different organizations, different retail agencies and wholesale brokers to the carriers for them to really tweak their program and their products to deliver what's really important to the consumers. The fact that I'm able to participate in bringing that value, I think that also empowers me doing what I do every single day. So I love what I do. I'm really passionate about it. And I know Claire mentioned, why is it that all these successful women leaders, they don't want to share their tips and their secrets to becoming successful? I think our generation of women in leadership we should be the complete opposite. Oh my God, if this worked for me, you should try to do something similar, and let's help, let us help you get to where you want to get to. And I think if we're able to grow that group of women, successful women, can you imagine what we can accomplish all together? I mean, that would be such a wonderful experience.
Well, and that's where it's kind of like the
Yeah.
whole, like, you can't compete with me because I want you to win too. When
Yeah.
you win, I win, we all win together. And I think that that's one of those preconceived notions that we have been really trying to change, because I don't want you to fail the same way I did. I want you to think of something
Right.
much more innovative and go fail that way because I already tried doing it this way. Or even when we're looking at it as, I really feel like a lot of the narratives and a lot of the scripts that we have dealt with, I would say in the past 20 years, let's say that, maybe even the last 10. I think Chief just had published an article the other day that said the pay gap for women executives has been growing since 2012. So
Wow.
at the time period right now, all right, so I don't like that we are repeating like the 1970s and the 1980s and the 1990s. My biggest fear is that we will not get to move the needle far enough for these women to come behind us and continue to take it off. That's my biggest fear. So this is where I really agree with Vivian. We've got to band together and be that change so that we can drive that needle forward. So we're not repeating the same mistakes and coming through and living those same narratives and scripts again and again and again. It's time to break the cycle.
It's really good. That's really good. So, you, as I mentioned earlier, you are all leaders in your own right. And, you just talked about, being seen, heard, acknowledged. We're talking about, when some women who are in leaders who don't want to share, their recipe for leadership. But let's take it back to your younger years, when you first came in the industry and you saw the CEOs and all the rest of these people, and some of them helped, some of them did not. But if you could travel back in time and give yourself just a little bit of advice as you navigated through the industry and saw a lot of these leaders, what would you tell yourself just about your navigation within the industry in general?
I would tell,
Oh, Courtney, go ahead.
I would tell myself earlier on that you yourself are a brand, regardless of who you work for and what your role is. Your brand follows you no matter where you go. So how you manage and advertise and bring yourself to work every day, the things that you do to advance your career every day, those all add to your brand. So be very intentional about how you communicate yourself, communicating the right things to the right people in the right forums will serve you well and create more opportunity for you versus the alternative. If you remember yourself as the brand and that you are the brand and have a power in yourself, you will be irreplaceable to wherever you work, and any opportunity that you are seeking will be possible.
That's good. That's really good.
I would say have the courage. Have the courage to choose yourself over and over, and have the courage to move forward and not backwards. Have the courage to choose growth over comfort, because I think that's where we all struggle with, right? And have the courage to choose possibility over the past experience. Have the courage to recognize that progression isn't always easy. And sometimes things can get, things that can scare you will actually get you a lot closer to where you want to be. So having that courage every single day, I think that's the key to the path of your success. Because without it, I don't think that we can move an inch forward.
Very good. Very good.
All right, so I feel like I don't know, I've always been loud, but I want to take a step back here for a second. And Lovey Jones is one of like my favorite people right now. And her husband's actually in risk management. So I feel like this is a good tie-in. But she is the author of Professional Troublemaker and I'm Judging You. And she has an amazing TED Talk about getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. And so she says, when the world told me to whisper, I chose to yell. And I love that because I feel like that is such a big statement. And I don't feel like I've ever really been quiet, but I could have used my voice in a more effective means to drive more meaningful change. So when I look back, I definitely played things safe, like not taking the chance and not stepping forward when I was ready. I would just kind of stay safe. But then I had a team that was super amazing at one point that really started to get me to understand it isn't about the work you're doing. It doesn't matter how many families, because I don't like calling them claims, how many families you're impacting at once. It's all about the people that you surround yourself with, because they can absolutely make or break your environment and organizational culture. And that can really keep people going a lot more. So as I progressed in my career, I had some really great opportunities to see leaders that stood up for their people when, the dollar amount of a client might have dictated otherwise, but it was the unfair treatment of a person in that instance. And I watched a leader get fired for it. And he has always said it was the right thing to do. She didn't deserve to be treated like that. And so growing up with that kind of leadership as an example shaped my career pretty heavily. I really like that whole, like, when the world tells you to whisper, I chose to yell. Like, it's just so powerful. If you guys haven't seen her TED Talk, it's amazing. And she's an awesome writer. So I think probably would have challenged a little bit more effectively and efficiently than be told to like sit still and done it with the objectivity and less feelings. Oh, I said it. I've totally been called emotional. Absolutely been called emotional. That was one of our topics in our secret society, is what do you do when somebody calls you emotional? And so the next day I went back to my leader's office at that point. And I was like, I am not emotional. I am passionate and purpose driven. And if you were going to mistake that for emotional, then maybe I shouldn't be here. So.
Yeah, I've had that conversation before, not in a secret society, but I've had that conversation before.
Well, just like, call me crazy. That'll be fun.
That's better. What do you believe the future of the insurance industry will look like for women? Vivian?
I think with continued visibility, women will for sure, without a doubt, we're going to pursue our leadership positions and thrive and come out as leaders and winners. I mean, there's not even a 1% of doubt in my statement, because I understand how amazing and resilient us women are. So again, going back to what we were talking about earlier, if we're able to support that with, different resources and support system and things of that nature, then definitely we will see a lot more women in the leadership role doing an amazing work. Not to say that men aren't doing amazing work, but let us try it and let's see what happens. That's all I gotta say.
That was good.
I have a wish and an aspiration for what I'd want to see, and it's some of what Dr. Claire and Vivian have shared about seeing more CEO executives for whatever that looks like. I remember in the last year, I looked at one of the articles from an insurance industry, a source, and it had the top paid executives in our industry. I am almost certain they were all male.
Wow.
So as much as we talk about being in positions of power, Dr. Claire's talked about the financial aspects, those have to come together. And I agree with Vivian about, the power that will then generate. I just think I would love to see that. And it's not a check the box where you should only see one or two. That's not what we're trying to get to. right? There should be more equity in that. There can be a balance of that where we are the equal proportional to the population size, and that even amongst more women, you're also talking about diverse backgrounds within that, whatever that may mean in a variety of contexts. We should more so as an industry reflect the world that we live in.
And the world that is reflective of insurance policyholders. Like that always fascinates me when we see, because I mean, I'll say it, the insurance industry is predominantly white. All the policyholders aren't. So the representation is a little off on that element as well. So when we talk about what do we see the future, I hope the future is super colorful. And I hope to see that there are, well, I'm totally in agreement with Courtney, more than one or two, and that they can congregate together for a sense of community. Because I think that a lot of us do face the same challenges, and we are so quiet in how those challenges occur because we don't want to appear weak or that we can't handle it. When truly, again, there's strengths in numbers. And, you know, kind of going with like the Me Too movement, you had one person come out and then here comes this huge ripple effect. A lot of us deal with a lot of that kind of stuff that goes on behind the scenes, and we don't talk about it because of how we're going to be perceived, when really there's a lot of strength in the vulnerability that comes from that. And that takes a huge shape shift of the insurance industry as a whole to, you know, we talk about being vulnerable in the insurance industry. Yeah, right. That's like it's not okay. You don't talk about stuff like that. But I think that there is a sense of camaraderie that we can start building. And I do believe that that is going to start with us and the younger generations that we bring into this marketplace, because they won't come, period, if they don't start seeing the change. And to all of your points earlier, it has to be actionable and currently being executed. And I think that's what is the amazing power of Gen Z. That's why I love teaching at Drake. I love seeing these students come through, and I hear them and I hear these stories, and I'm like, yes, this is why I am staying here. I cannot wait to see this ripple effect start to come through, because they came through and said, I don't care about your money. I don't care about your titles. I want to see your action items. And it has been very specific to DE&I and ESG. It's just kind of fascinating to see how an entire generation could come together and be like, yeah, you know what? Thanks, but no thanks. Till you guys want to get with the times.
I love that, because in my mind, especially with Gen Z, it's only going to get, I've heard older generations, it's only going to get worse, but in my mind, it's only going to get better. That's it. It's only going to get better. After Gen Z, I don't know who's after that. As they keep coming along, like it's only going to get better, because it's that accountability portion of it. You know, everybody can write a statement. I'm a historian by trade, so I've written many papers. But at the same time, these papers I've written, a lot of those people in history did not do as well. So it's that accountability factor. And I love that, you know, in a sense that was mentioned by all of you. So our last question, two-part. So why is it important for the industry to celebrate Women's History Month? And with these up and coming generation of women becoming, you know, being leaders in the industry, what advice would you give to them?
Me, it's important to celebrate. And to me, it's not optional, right? It's required. And while we are doing this as in 1 month, because it's it's national month, that's not enough, right? It's never just enough for 1 month or 1 day for anything. But this is about bringing awareness. So we have to be loud about doing that. And my advice to the next generation of leaders, it's kind of summarizing like what all we've talked about here, is be bold, be brave, roar. If you're the last, don't be the last. If you're the only, don't be the only. Be a part of that change. Get involved. Your voice matters.
Good.
Love that so much. So I'm going to piggyback off you again, Courtney, because I love what you're saying and I'm here for it. So I agree. I think there's an awareness to how far we've come. And I want to put that in quotation marks just because I feel like we've taken a few steps back as of late for a plethora of reasons. And with that, I also want to say too, we got to be aware of what the trajectory looks like. Like, what are we doing to help support each other? Like, how can I be better supportive of you along the way? And how do we band together? My advice to younger generations, when you get that opportunity, you are given 2 arms. The reach out that you are going to be grabbing to come into your leadership spot. And then you have this other arm. Turn around and bring someone with you. It is the easiest thing to do, is to bring people with you. So recently, we have this, that writing is not a huge thing right now in certain courses in universities because, cursive's not being taught in elementary schools, you name it. And so writing is something that we all know is super imperative. Grammar, you name it, is important in worlds to begin with. So, I've started to take my students with me because I do write a lot. And so today was the first day that something got published where a student and I published a piece on workers' compensation leadership, because it's not that hard to take someone with you. Just go. If you like, when people want to get into speaking or they want to get into leadership or they want to get more engulfed in a course, like we get to do that for one another. So here's the roadmap of the success that I've had. And if you want to come with me, let me know. You want to do a coffee chat? Let's go. You want to come speak with me? Let's go. I'll get you on a webinar and let's figure out how we can do that, where again, you've got 2 arms. So you get that opportunity to take that leadership element. And then that other arm is so important to bring up those that come next.
Wow, I can't top that, Claire, but
Give you
I'll
my
say a few
arm.
words. I think it's super important to celebrate, because when we celebrate things, whether it's birthday or somebody's promotion or somebody had a baby, it's all because we recognize and bring out the positivity in the room for everyone to really feel it in their core. And I think that's why it's so important to celebrate the month of International Women, because by celebrating, we're able to spread that positivity to our core in every single woman in this industry. So if it was up to me, I would celebrate every single day, for the entire year, not just 1 month out of the year. But with that, what advice would I give to the next generation of female leaders? I would say, allow yourself to transform as many times as you need to be fully be happy and free. Again, going back to having those additional challenges as women, we never feel free and we're never fully happy. So we need to allow ourselves to transform so that we can get there. And I think we need to implement that on a daily basis, whether it's at home or at work. But we have to do that while we're protecting our core.
Right.
Don't lose yourself, right? And also, growth takes place when you're challenged and not when you're comfortable. So we have to remember that, because I think when we get to a certain place in our career, we feel comfortable. Oh, I make enough money. Do I want to pursue something that's going to be uncomfortable for me? I'm okay here. But are you really okay there? Or are you afraid of the challenges and not being comfortable? Is that where your fear is? If you want to get to that next level, we have to embrace being uncomfortable. So those are the few words that I would give to the next generation of women.
So I have a cute little story to piggyback off of Vivian's celebration elements of this. So when we celebrate each other, whether it be, birthday, baby, business, whatever it is. So I went out on my own this past year after getting laid off as the chief risk officer of an organization, which was, I will tell you guys, it was the hardest thing for my identity known to man. So Vivian, when you say don't be afraid to reinvent yourself, I needed you to tell me that last year. Be like, it's okay, I got you, it's fine. It's okay to reinvent yourself. It's okay to transform and what this is going to look like. But so I started my own consulting company, terrified beyond measure. And it's been a really fun journey, very uncomfortable and very fun. But I went into the bank one day and I had my first paycheck from this. And so talking to the teller, and she said, hey, I helped you open this account. Is this your first check? And I said, yeah. And she's like, girl, and gave me a high five. And then this is like showing up for each other in a way that we don't think about. It is those little tiny moments. I walked out strutting that day. Now, it wasn't a big check, but it's my first one. And I did that. And this girl recognized that. She made me feel seen. And having that, like having us be cheerleaders like that in those elements, whatever it is, whether it's been, you know, you did a great job leading that meeting. I see you. Like those things are what end up catapulting us and snowballing into these big dynamic changes that we want. And it starts by those very, very, very small moments. So I agree with the celebration at its core. And don't be afraid to transform yourself. It might be scary and uncomfortable, but so be it. We keep on keeping on.
All right. Thank you all for joining us today. I've learned something from each and every one of you. I have something in common based off your backgrounds from each and every one of you, which we will definitely discuss at a later date. But I love this conversation. I could probably talk to you all forever, but thank you for even agreeing to do this. Thank you to our audience for watching. I hope you picked up gems as well. Courtney, Vivian, Dr. Claire, please continue to be the phenomenal leaders that you are within the industry. I can't wait to see what all of you do now and in the future. Once again, guys, I am Amy Cole Smith, Director of Diversity at the Institutes. This is Diversity at the Institutes, and we are so happy that you joined us today for Women's History Month. And on a side note, Vivian, please tell your son thank you for your service. Thank you all for watching today.
Thank you.
Thank you.